Hello, everyone. Welcome to our mental health and leadership series, Sustaining the Leaders Who Sustain the Chapter. Last week, we had a session as it relates to recruiting and retention, and we just realized at Phi Alpha Delta, it's that season. You all have finals, you have a multitude of things going on, and so we have a mental health panel of educators and professionals and experts that are going to be providing you all with tangible things. And as it relates to myself, my name is LaShatá Grayson. I am the Director of Training and Growth at Phi Alpha Delta, overseeing recruitment and training efforts, specifically focused on leadership and inclusion. And so if you have a question that is related to Phi Alpha Delta, I am here as well to support and answer. If it's anything that you all need outside of this session, because sometimes you all do come on this session and you may need rosters, you may need something else as it relates to your chapter, I will be here to provide that for you all. I see that we have two people here. If you can do me a favor and just drop where you're coming from in the chat. So if you're a pre-law or a law chapter and what university you're at, that would be really helpful for me today. Just drop that in the chat. As you all are dropping that in the chat, I'm going to move right along to what can you expect simply from today. We're really going to be talking about this notion of emotional and psychological signs of overload. Like you all are doing so many different things as it relates to trying to program, trying to handle your academics, trying to apply for funding. We have mock trial, we have our pre-law conference this week. And so you're doing so many different things. And so how do we know the signs of, hey, this is overload or psychologically not well? And then really receiving some resources that you can apply immediately. They have spent some time. The questions that I'm going to ask them really going to have those tangible takeaways of the resources that you're providing that we're going to provide you immediately. Then we're going to have some conversations about rest versus avoidance. And so are we resting or are we really avoiding what's happening? And then as these licensed mental health providers come forth, we're going to have some conversations really about some real life examples because we all kind of go through different things in life. And so they're going to be here to provide you those tangible takeaways, right? And so our goal is really simple. I feel like I need to give you all a goal. We're here to just help you lead with sustainability and be sustainable without losing yourself in the process. We love that you decided to say yes to be a part of this purpose-driven organization, Phi Alpha Delta. And that yes came with so many responsibilities. That yes came with so many expectations and sometimes some misalignment. But we also want you to say yes to yourself. And so first and foremost, thank you for showing up today for you, not just for Phi Alpha Delta, not just for your chapter, but for yourself. Thank you for listening to the recording that will be sent out as well. And so we don't want you to lose yourself in the process. You say yes to being a part of Phi Alpha Delta, but that doesn't mean saying yes to Phi Alpha Delta is saying no to yourself. And so one of the things that we're going to do today, because I want you all to see who we have today. So one of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I want to be able to introduce you all to our panelists. And remember, if you have not yet dropped where you are coming from in the chat, your chapter, please make sure you are doing so. So first we have Angel. He's a licensed social worker and therapist. He says, it's been his professional background since 2013. He supported teens and adults through making life transitions and strategizing them to utilize resources around them to overcome daily challenges. He helps with decreasing stress and increased joy. He specializes in helping people to develop an understanding of themselves as agents in their environment by processing difficult situations and then working together to build the relevant coping skills needed to handle anticipated stress. And so when we talk about stress and needing to manage all them different things, Angel is a really good professional worker as it relates to that background and supporting teens and adults. Angel, just drop an emoji or something in the chat so they can just know where you're coming from. Drop something in the chat. Next, we have Rachel. And if you can just see her background with the plants, she's giving vibes. Rachel is giving all of the synergy, all of the vibes. She looks calming. She makes me want to take a nap, okay? I want to rest just looking at Rachel. But Rachel is a licensed therapist, relationship coach, and founder of 7 counseling, 7 counseling and coaching services based in Indianapolis, Indiana. For nearly 20 years, she has helped individuals and couples, okay, I'm gonna have a little partner, and couples more deeply with themselves and others through mindfulness, systematic awareness, and faith-informed care. Guided by her belief in finding purpose in the pain and strength in the struggle, Rachel helps leaders stay grounded in truth and peace so they can pour into others from a place of wholeness. And so Rachel wants you to be whole, right? I think that's really key. Really trying to be whole as we're really taking these things to pour into ourselves. Rachel, if you want to drop an emoji or something in the chat, just drop it in chat so they can know that you are here. Lastly, we have Derek. He has the background with the weeds and all the different things. And so he is going to be here to he began his career in higher education, where he spent years helping students navigate college, career, and purpose. His passion for connection and growth led him to founder the Rogan Room, a consulting firm dedicated to helping colleges and organizations build more engaging and inclusive student experiences. Today, Derek continues that mission as a therapist in training, finishing his second master's, second in mental health counseling and working directly with young adults to support their emotional and personal development. In his new role with Phi Alpha Delta as a membership growth consultant, he is excited to bring both his higher education and mental health background to this space. Thank you, friends, first and foremost, be here. Derek, can you drop something in the chat? Drop something in the chat. First and foremost, thank you all for being here and providing this space, right? And the wealth of knowledge that you all have today. And so one of the things is the people that are on here, if you want to drop a question in the chat for them to answer, we will do so. Also, towards the end, I will stop the recording in case you want to ask some individual questions that you may not want to be recorded. And so the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to get started with asking just some simple questions. So leadership often comes with so much invisible pressure. A lot of our students are facing so many different things. And so when we're thinking about emotional, psychological signs that students should look out for as it relates to their caring too much, what are some signs that you would say that, hey, it's some psychological signs that you may be doing a little bit too much? I'm going to call on Rachel, Angel, Derek.
So, one of the big things that I tell students, especially our students who are massive leaders or students who are juggling a lot of different hats, when you want to identify if you're doing too much, a lot of the times you're going to see that sense of accomplishment be lost or diminished, right? These are often students who have gotten into these leadership positions because they have goals. And those can be temporary, they can be long term, but these are very involved students. So oftentimes you're picking up all these activities, majors, and things like that for a reason. When you kind of start approaching burnout, that's when you'll kind of start to see yourself in a really different thought pattern of saying, well, this isn't that important or this doesn't really matter. And once you kind of start losing that pool to be successful in all of these different things, that can be kind of an early telltale sign that, okay, hey, maybe I might be trying to carry too many things at one time, and maybe I should put something down, maybe I should hand something off. That's one of the first ones that I talk with students about.
So I guess I want to also kind of start off by like I'm sort of inserting in here that there's nothing wrong with feeling stretched thin, right? That is indicative of being completely human, right? And the ability to notice, right, and to discern those like alarms and those bells and those whistles that are going off in your body or in your brain or in your head and in your heart is a strength. And so it's like, how do you actually know when you're getting there? Because it can be really insidious sometimes, right? It's not so easy to see. Sometimes people just end up feeling they don't really understand why, but maybe they just feel kind of irritable. or they're kind of starting to feel sort of flatlining, right? This kind of the loss of passion. Maybe in those meetings where you used to be really invigorated, you find yourself kind of zoning out or not noticing the same amount of details or forgetting things, right? Or just having like a headache, right? Or being over it, or this like tension that you really can't kind of get rid of. Those are all signs for me that your body's right. Those are signs from your body letting you know that you need to slow down. Right, that we're kind of overloaded. Sometimes when people start to even recognize that, though, like calls from inside the house start going off, right? If I don't keep everything together, it's going to fall apart. If I don't keep everything together, it's going to fall apart. And from like a trauma informed point of view, that might be your nervous system kind of running an old pattern. And you know, it might be some attempt to, right, keep yourself essentially safe by controlling everything that you can. And yeah, that for me, you know, in those moments, I think it's nice to think about, you know, what is the cost of upholding this utopia? Because you can do it, right? People actually do it for entire lifetimes. But upholding that kind of utopia where you're doing everything yourself and you're not, right, and you're not acknowledging the need for more gas in the tank is going to come at a great cost.
Okay. Thank you. Rachel, what are your thoughts?
I feel like my internet's being a bit janky, so I'll do my best here. I may jump on my phone. But yeah, I agree. If you're not feeling stretched a little thin, I'd say maybe you're not navigating in a growth mindset. I feel like it's really important for all of us to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's also equally as important to be intentional of learning your body, learning your mind, learning your heart, learning what happens and how you navigate stress and feeling overwhelmed. Because we all do it differently. I have signs in my body that I'm not going to share, but I'm like, oh, I must be stressed because this is happening or this is not happening, you know? So just learning yourself and, you know, just allowing it to be. And I'd say if you're not asking yourself if I'm doing too much, you're doing yourself a disservice in the first place. It's a very solid question to ask as a professional, as an individual in all aspects of life, I believe. So yeah, I believe your question was, how do we navigate it or how are we aware? I feel like we have a lot of information on all the signs. It could be in your body, it could be the mental, it could be you're pulling away. Some people try to do more, some people you just know something's different. And we don't always have to know exactly how to pinpoint it. We just have to be intentional about giving ourselves the space to slow down and connect to it, whatever the dysregulation and or the discomfort is.
I think you all hit on a good notion. Like all of you all said some great key things, but some of the things that stick out to me is just like acknowledgement, right? Like acknowledging and asking yourself these type of questions. And I think a lot of times, a lot of our students, and particularly even myself, a high achiever, sometimes it's society puts this shame on being stressed or struggling, right? And so how do we get to this space of reframing this notion to ask for help or not seeing some of the things as a weakness? I think you all did good at sharing some of the signs, right? Like this emotional regulation, but also recentering yourself and also asking yourself questions. But like, how do we get this notion of like, hey, I know something is going on. I know like it's some pressure, right? Some emotional signs there. How do we get to this notion of asking for help instead of thinking of it as a weakness or thinking of it as like, I have to do it all?
Well, I think to Rachel's point, you have to first start by seeing them as signs and not as weaknesses. And again, to Rachel's point, all of them are going to look different for every person, and those signs are all going to tell you different things. Because it's also not always about um, being overloaded in totality. Sometimes it can be about being overstimulated in that moment. Sometimes it can be um, about genuinely questioning what your next movie is. It can be a lot of different things. And the first thing you have to do is see it as a sign, not as a weakness or not as something to fix. And once you start viewing it that way, what you will see start to kind of naturally and intentionally happen is that you'll start trying to read a sign, right? The same way, kind of how if you're driving down the road, if you see a sign some far ahead, all the way back here, you'll start saying, "Now, what does that sign say?" You'll squint a little bit, trying to get to the bottom of it. If you start viewing those emotional, mental, physical, faith-based responses of self as signs, then you'll naturally start to say, well, what does this mean? What is this saying? What is this trying to say? And once you start to learn what those things are saying for you, then you will know what you need to adjust. If you feel like this sign is telling you that you're stressed, or this sign is telling you that you're taking on too much, then you'll know that you might need to take it down a notch. If this sign, I have signs that tell me that I don't spend enough non-productive time just enjoying life. If what that sign is for me pops up, then I have to stop and reevaluate and say, okay, cool. I'm not enjoying my life at the moment. I'm kind of just going day to day. It's not stress per se, but it is a sign that I want to do something different. And I could be in grind mode and say, hey, okay, cool. I see the sign. I understand what it's saying. But the phase that I am right now for the next 2 weeks, I just know it's going to be chaotic. And so just understanding what those signs are telling you and kind of approaching them with some curiosity.
That's literally what I was about to say, Derek. Curiosity
Oh,
is
I'm so sorry, Rachel.
No. I was just saying you like were a perfect segue. I was gonna say, the power of curiosity is just like unmatched, like I navigate me and my plants. No, we navigate life just standing on some foundational truths. And one of mine is lean into the curiosity and that nothing is ever all good or all bad. So again, the signs are the signs. And when we try to, this is right, this is wrong, and we start shame and should, because I say if you're shoulding yourself, you're shaming yourself. So if you like, I should be doing this, I should have, it's just like, let's just dead that and let's just focus on like how we're feeling, what's going on, how do we want to move forward. Let's just be curious about all of it. Nobody knows what they're doing, if we should go left or we should go right. We're just going to make our best decision and trust ourselves to use our resources and and those we have and those we don't, to just keep committing to push forward. So yeah, curiosity, the power of curiosity is a game changer.
Kind of going off of what Rachel and Derek were saying, this idea of like, what information can I extract from this, right? And if it's the need for help, Rachel also kind of touched on utilizing the resources around her. Sometimes people, when they tune into their feelings, they're like recognizing that they need help, it can incite this shame that I'm not good enough or I'm not capable enough because I have to ask for help. And right, but asking for help is actually one of the most regulated and mature things a person can do, right? It's one of the most mature nervous system responses you can have, right? When your brain trusts that connection with other people is a path to safety, right? And it also kind of touches on self-esteem, right? Asking for help is one of the most confident things you can do. It means that you trust your team. It means you trust your friends, right? Or your mentors enough to be real with them about what we need to make this thing happen. But the whole thing with like a company, right? And especially with leadership, where people feel oftentimes the mantle of that is that a company achieves things that people cannot do by themselves, that would otherwise be impossible to do alone. Right. And so, you're not meant to carry, right, stress and leadership alone. Right. And when you ask for help, you're showing wisdom, right? When you reframe kind of seeking help as collaboration, right, not as weakness, it turns into a huge, right, leadership strength.
Well, you all said some good stuff. I see you in the chat, Derek. You said I usually have clients replace should with want or need and see if the sentence is still true or applicable for the situation. I put in there too, nothing is never good and nothing is never all bad, right? I think some of the things and also this notion of Angel really hitting on paying attention to yourself and also that psychological just piece. And so I think with a lot of students, especially with the climate of just with the world, right? Like there's a lot happening in the world and being tasked with sustaining the chapter. We have law students and what's going to be the next thing. And so my question to you all is what happens mentally and physically when students are never allowing their nervous system to rest? And just what small practices or support for recovery? Because I think a lot of times we talk about, okay, these are the signs and these are some of the things, but like, I don't think a lot of our students, while I see it, are resting. Sometimes I struggle with resting. I'm tired right now. I need to go to sleep. And so, how do we actually give them tangible things and what happens when you're not resting?
Yeah. I don't know the quote. I will butcher a quote, y'all, but it's something like if you want to go faster, first you need to slow down or something like that. Just highlighting the importance of the best thing you can usually do is just ground yourself, slow down, and be intentional about your next steps. We all know what it feels like to just be literally going in circles, running rapidly in circles. It's exhausting. It's very unhealthy. So yeah, just slow down, ground yourself. For me, that's a hike every day. For some people, that's going to the gym. For some people, that's reading a book. For some people, it's blasting music. Some of us are all the above, but just commit to doing something. Rest doesn't necessarily mean laying in the bed doing nothing. It's whatever refuels, recharges. Um, and if you don't know what that is, then I would encourage you just to start exploring stuff. Oh, okay, I'm gonna go. Okay, yeah, that's not for me. Okay, well, I'm gonna try this. And in the process of figuring out what makes you feel rested in your spirit, it just feels good to know that you're doing something for you in the process, that you are committed to figuring out what fuels you. Because I don't need to say all the cliche statements of first you have to put your mask on and first like we all know, it's committing to honor that truth that a lot of us struggle with. So small steps.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel, for that. And just even to hone in on this notion of rest doesn't mean just laying down.
One of the things that kind of came up for me when I was listening to Rachel talk is that, like, kind of what happens when you just keep buzzing around. Lots of people develop bad habits with neuroses, right? Where they are doing the wrong action to solve the wrong problem. And they don't even really understand why. And they think that they're doing one thing to alleviate the anxiety of another, but it's really not actually doing anything to address that core, right? Not stopping. Right. And it'll start to take a toll on you, right? You'll feel tired no matter how much you sleep. You will lose motivation. You'll get sick more often. You will not feel connected to the people around you or even like to the things you like anymore. Sometimes though, what stops people from resting is that they feel like if they start resting, then they're never going to stop, or I don't have enough time to rest. But it doesn't take, I mean, 1 hours of rest are nice, right? First of all, let's just square that away. But even that, a small moment with intention, right? If it's before you walk into the next room, or before you open your laptop for the next meeting, if you're taking like even one right breath, half a breath in, whole breath out, right? if it's you're in lecture or in a meeting and or getting ready, right, or waiting for one to start, it's kind of putting your phone down and just noticing something around you with your senses and tuning into it, right? You can really drop down the elevator into your body for this one. It could be as straightforward as like, okay, I'm going to get up and stretch out my back real quick. With that intention of like this, the reason I'm doing this is like literally for rest, for stretching, for right, my own nourishment. And every time you're doing that, you know, it's not a bad thing to have a touch point with reality where you're giving your nervous system, you know, a moment to breathe.
I also think that there's a beautiful piece of exploration that we are all talking about, because that rest is also going to look different for every person too. And I often tell clients and such that sometimes some of these answers may seem like, I've had students who I've sat on panels and they've been like, hey, these all seem like fluff answers. And that's not at all what they are. A big piece of this, both to Angel and Rachel's points, is that you do have to figure out what it is for you, and you have to figure out what even the timing of that looks like for you, right? If you have a chaotic day, are the mornings better for you to do a 10-minute yoga session or at lunchtime, right? That could even make a massive difference in how the rest of your day goes. And learning when you feel rested, when you feel restored, is also going to be just as equally important as those signs of stress and things like that that we were just talking about a second ago. Because one thing that I often have clients do is just a body scan. What does your body feel like? Where is it tense? Where is it not? Where is it relaxed? Where is it not? In what situations is your body relaxed and which is it not? And a lot of the times, especially if you've done it for the first time, folks will say, okay, well, yeah, my body just feels like my body. And I'll say, okay, cool. Tense every muscle in your body right now and then relax it and see kind of the difference that you feel. That's something, to your point at the start of this, LaShatá, that could be like tangible, so to speak. But even that isn't something that will work for everybody, right? Body scans are always good, kind of just to take a pulse of yourself. But even the tensing, untensing, there are you can Google grounding exercises. There are 1,000 of them, but also to Rachel's point, it is going to be about you trying this one and saying, okay, that didn't really do anything for me. And I want to take a second, because sometimes getting kind of this exploration of self, you'll try 2 of them and they won't work. And you'll look up and you'll say, hey, see, this is all a load of crap. Nobody knows what they're talking about. I tried it. The therapist folks who came and sat on the panel said I should do it, and it doesn't work. But I promise you, once you start to realize the ones that do work, it will be life-changing every time. And so that's one of the biggest things that I want to kind of leave folks with, this exploration of self, and don't let it be a one and done. But I won't get on my soapbox about that too much. But
No, I think, go ahead, Rachel.
I just wanted to add too, if nothing else, this really, this helps me a lot, and it helps a lot of people I work with, a lot of folks I work with. Sometimes just knowing where your feet are, like knowing where you are in your mind, is a game changer. And I always say this, and I make this up, but I say, if you're focusing on your past, you're going to feel depressed and heavy. If you're focusing on your future, you're going to feel really anxious and jittery, like you're not doing enough. Oh my goodness. The best and safest place to be, if you want to connect a piece, is in the present. So sometimes just kind of gauging your thoughts, like, where am I? Am I focusing on where I messed up last week? Am I hyper focused on the what ifs? Or am I like, do I see the sun shining? Do I I don't know, am I enjoying this coffee? Am I in this present moment? And sometimes that's enough rest in the moment, and so just finding ways to be grounded in the here and the now. That is a very simple, basic example of rest. So yeah.
Can I just uplift that too? Because if you all notice in mine, Rachel and Derek's answers, the kind of big three things here is like the breath, the body, and the environment, right? I am such a big fan of those three, and I'll tell you why, right? That longer breath out than in, the muscular massage, the tuning into the environment, because you don't need anything to do it. Right? Music or distraction or watch, right? Those other things are like those are great too, right? But the three that intuitively we kind of landed on are the ones that you can do with nothing else. Right. And the body and the environment is kind of what's always there for us. So I just want to kind of uplift that a little bit.
No, I think, like I said, this is really great. A lot of our students come to us for chapter coaching and struggle with feeling like they're burnt out, right? And like boundaries. That's been the big word, boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. But how can they communicate those boundaries without feeling guilty? And it's kind of like a multi-level question of like, how do you really know that you're burnt out?
Boundaries is a big one for me because this is like might be a hot take, it might not. They're so because boundaries is one of those words that they just become a buzzword that a lot of people really don't know how to do. And I think that it's okay that people don't know how to do them. But I think that when people think they're great at them and they're not, it puts them in a really tough situation. Because a lot of folks will set boundaries, will think they're setting boundaries when in fact it's a rule or an expectation. A rule and expectation says, "Hey, if you do this, then I will do this." Right? And so a lot of the times when people are trying to set boundaries, and we all misstep, but a lot of times when folks are trying to set boundaries, especially comes to your point, let's say with like chapters, let's say you'll say, "Hey, if you don't come to the meeting, then I'll just always start the meeting late." Right? That is a rule, not necessarily a boundary. A boundary is something about you that is for you, regardless of the actions of others. And it's intended to say, these are all the things that are in my control. And when you set a boundary the best or the proper way, it is a lot easier to navigate them guilt free. So instead of saying, if you call me for official business past 10 p.m., I'm going to reject your call. That's a rule. That's if you do this, then I will do this. Instead, I would just say, "Hey, I love to chat with you, but I just don't take business calls past 8 p.m." Right? That boundary is for me. It has nothing to do with your actions. It has nothing to do with this person's actions. It has nothing to do with what this person thinks. This is something that's for me to just say, "Hey, I just don't take business calls past 8 p.m." No biggie. I'm more than happy to talk to you tomorrow. Here are all the things that I can do. Right? And because it's for you, can there still be some guilt and some other things there? Sure. But it is a little bit less uh, when you set them the right way and you don't base them on others and you don't make them in a reactionary fashion. Right. And so that's a big one that I always love working with folks on is how to properly set those. Even when things get heated, to say, "Hey, I don't handle meetings when people yell. It's just not something that I do in a business setting." Right? Versus saying, "Hey, if you yell, I'm going to end this meeting." Very, very kind of different things. And so when practice kind of makes perfect with setting boundaries, but that's kind of my tidbit.
I also think about this intersection between boundaries and burnout, because And we talked about it earlier, right? That part of burnout is knowing when you're doing too much. But it's also when you don't have enough space to rest and to right, refill your tanks. Is essentially right, not enough boundaries. And sometimes, and I like this skillfulness aspect of it, right? Because boundaries shouldn't be a barrier to another person, right? They're a way, they are setting parameters so that your agreement to do something, right? So that your yes to your willingness actually means something, right? And so that it can be actualized more effectively. They keep, right, boundaries, it's not shutting people out, it's keeping your energy sustainable, right? And in a way that's going to help you kind of show up well. What I will say though is oftentimes having a boundary is usually going to mean letting somebody else down, right? And in that moment, like guilt often creeps in, right? That little voice of guilt, you know, what if I'm letting somebody else down? What if they think I don't care? And that can be really hard, right? If that's what's showing up in the moment that you're kind of trying to say now. But it doesn't mean that you don't care, right? The guilt is usually about us feeling like if we're doing something that is wrong that we can correct, right? And you can correct it if you just back away from the boundary, for example, right? But you can actually also like disregard that guilt, right? Or you can kind of metabolize it, right? In seeking and understanding, I'm not saying no because I don't care, right? I care about this deeply, and I care enough to put up, right, some guardrails here to protect my energy so I can keep showing up here, right? And I really emphasize that gentleness and right and that honesty, right? I really want to give this my all. I want to put my best foot forward, right? And that's going to mean, yeah, slow and like measured steps.
Yes. And I just want to follow up on the gems that they've already dropped. Boundaries are like a non-negotiable for me. Like, I don't think you can do relationships and I don't think you can do relationships well without boundaries. I don't think you can be secure within yourself as a person without boundaries. And we're talking a lot about it. And I just want to give the 3 steps that I give folks and that I use for myself. And I would love to hear what y'all think about them because I just made them up. I started to realize the pattern working with people. First of all, a lot of people don't know how they feel. Okay. So, like, I'm really big. I saw Angel has the feelings wheel on his cup. Me and the feelings wheel, we walk hand in hand. I need people to start at the core of the feelings wheel. Usually the core emotions are at the core of the wheel. And I challenge my clients to work their way all the way out to the outer realm, break it down to the break the emotion down, like really connect with it. So first, identify your feeling using a feelings wheel if you need to. Because, you know, we'll just say, I feel all right. I feel good. I'm all right. No, what is the feeling? And then, thank you. Yes. And then what do you need? Right. So if I'm feeling inadequate or I'm feeling whatever, it's like, well, what do I need to feel more secure within myself? Maybe I need to make a list of some gratitudes. Maybe I need to reflect on all the amazing things I've done today. How do I feel? What do I need? And then my third step is, how am I going to honor this? Right. And that's when you put it all together in a way that you're standing on something, right? Like, I'm standing on this. And so when I frame it like that, and when I support people in framing boundaries, like, this is how I feel, and this is what I need to feel secure, I'm realizing that it helps with that guilt or that discomfort because you're framing it to yourself like, I need this. Like, I need this. And if we're going to do this together, we're going to have to figure out how to make this work. And if we can't, then we'll talk next steps. But sometimes we just don't know how to articulate it because we are just everywhere. So figure out how you're feeling, figure out what you need, and figure out how you're going to honor that. And you'll start to realize some people will kind of fade away. That's cool. And then you'll also attract some really amazing people. So boundaries are not optional, y'all. They are a fundamental requirement of healthy and secure relationships. That's all.
Rachel. I like that. I think it provides those tangible things for students to think about and to reflect on. as we are coming to just a close and out, I did write the two students that are on here. I did write in case they have any questions. So feel free to write me on the side if you want them to answer any question, or you can drop it in the chat. This is a space for you all to do so. And so I did want to allow our panelists to leave any final words or words of encouragement for students. They're going to finals, they're navigating, if they're going to go to apply to law school. Some of our students are, getting their results back from the bar, and they may not have gotten and passed. And so as we talk about burnout, as we talk about chapters and showing up, what is final thoughts that you just want to leave with the individual people that are on here, but also that may be watching this as I send the recording out?
I guess my final thoughts is like, you know, you can look towards some of our answers for what the evidence base tends to tell us about what works for humans in these situations, what tends to work for humans. But there's really no right way to do things, right? You can choose to ignore your boundaries and to ignore your need for resources. People live and die entire lives that way, where they're miserable at work and they're miserable at home and they're just making money and they're just continuing to grind, and then they just die miserably, right? That is actually there's nothing to shake your finger at. Billions of people around the world actually do it that way. There's this other option that we're kind of talking about where you're like paying attention to the alarms in your body, right? And using that information or those emotions as information sources, right? And figuring out, what do I want to do with that to kind of decrease stress or to increase joy and euphoria? Either of those pathways, there's emotional labor involved. If it's the emotional labor of hating your life, hating your family, hating yourself, or if it's the emotional labor of looking at those things that make us feel vulnerable to have to look at, what do you want to do, right? And what kind of experience do you want for yourself?
I absolutely agree with Angel. I think we touched quite a bit on curiosity, and I think for any college student, any young adult, in general, teen, whomever, approaching your own sense of self with curiosity is key. For the law students, pre-law students, whomever, the same way it's important for you to understand the books, the professors, the texts, the cases to be a good lawyer. You have to study those things. You have to understand those things. You have to make connections between them. And often you have to do that in a way that makes sense for you. You have to do that in a way that makes the information click for you. If you take that same approach in understanding yourself and what your body is saying, what your mind is saying, as Angel mentioned, to what your emotions are saying, and you understand the machine that creates you, you will learn how to make it do whatever you want it to do, whatever you want to do it. The same way you're studying to be great lawyers and attorneys, so that you can get the system of law to do what you want to do when you want to do it. It's gonna be the same thing. And so I often tell students, be intentional with that. Write it down. Some of my students think journaling is corny. Do a voice memo. Whatever you need to do to make mention of it in whatever system works for you. To be intentional with how you handle yourself, because kind of as you continue to go through life, nobody can teach you. You're going to be the best teacher of other people of how to handle you. If you don't know how to handle yourself, you can't teach anybody else. So those are my certain words of wisdom.
Okay. And then Rachel, I'm gonna allow you to go, and I'm gonna drop the question in the chat that someone asked.
Yeah, they both said really amazing things, but I just want to reiterate, life is hard. Okay. So that's just what that is. All right. So life is hard. And like Angel said, we just have to choose our hard. Okay. It's just going to be hard. It's not going to get any easier. We're just going to keep building and building and building and just hoping and praying we just continue to get stronger. I've never seen anybody keep going and not see them get stronger as they keep pushing. So just keep going. Yeah, just be mindful of what people say to you and what they don't say to you is more about them. Just lock in, lock in. And just be really intentional about the hard you choose, because navigating fear is hard. And honestly, being a secure, intentional person, that's hard too. So we're rooting for y'all.
Yeah. I'm going to read the question just for the recording purposes. So how do you balance, one of them asks, how do you balance maintaining your mental health while navigating cultural identity challenges within the legal profession or any profession? It's a good question.
Yeah. So for me, it really is a walk. I know it sounds really basic, but I stay in the trees. When I move and just no music, no podcasts, when I just move and just allow myself to love myself. How you doing? How was your day? You dropped the ball there. Yes, but it's a plastic ball. So we had this thing the other day. It was like, is that a plastic ball or was it a crystal ball? No, it was a plastic one. It's all right. We're all gonna make it. Just really anything that lingers in my spirit or that I feel shame or guilt about, because we're human. I try to give myself permission to let it go every day. So I like to think that I actually at this point I wake up and it's really a fresh start. Like I'm and it's taken me a while, y'all, but I'm to the point now where I have a ritual for myself, where I acknowledge all my imperfections and there's many, and all my shortcomings, but I'm focused. I have a goal. I know my why. So you just do your best to offer yourself grace, and you offer others grace. That way you can justify your own grace towards yourself, and you just keep going. The systems are not built or intentionally built to support us, and we have to know that and use our resources and build community and love. My answer is always going to be cheesy. Just be intentional about love.
I guess I want to normalize some paradox here, because oftentimes it's like people of color inside of like, any professional field here in America that's usually dominated by white bodies. There's this feeling of like, I can't know what I know and also act like I don't know what I know when I'm with them. This world is full of seemingly opposing forces that you will assume cannot exist at the same time. Right. And I would just encourage you, right, to kind of be wise and right, to be judicious, right, when you're kind of choosing, right, what you want to engage in, and also, right, knowing kind of when to drop the rope, right, that it's fine to see something that's not right and to desire for it to change, and also for you to decide, this is not my battle right now. It's okay, right? I want to normalize, right? Figure out ways to, sometimes it makes sense, right? If I can make this bigger change at a more at a more core kind of fundamental level, then there will be reverberations through the whole system. You're not off about that, right? You have to understand, we're remembering that the system is thousands of years in the making. Right. And just being very intentional about what stocks of reality you're kind of moving into, and normalizing, right, those polarized parts inside of ourselves that say, like, I want to do this, but I dare not. Sometimes that can feel like, that's just your one unified brain that's conflicted about this, right? Another way of thinking of it is those are two entire perspectives battling it out, right? And there is another perspective, right, that might be big enough, right, to kind of hold both of those and also make some kind of wise choices without those impulses doing the driving. I would argue that that could be found in your breath.
One of my mentors told me quite some time ago, one of the first challenges to understand with this balance of mental health and cultural identity is to gain an understanding that you're meant to be in any room you walk in. All right. If you weren't meant to be in the room, you wouldn't be in the room. Um, but I think the other piece of that I often encourage clients who are battling this is, for one, I often use the term, you give your emotions space to breathe. A lot of the times when we are battling these different things, kind of to Angel's point, when those perspectives are battling it out, um, you may or may not, but you may feel like one is trying to overcast and shut the other one up, right? And just giving your emotions room to exist and just giving your emotions kind of room to talk to you. Because I talk to myself many times a day, but giving them the opportunity to just to talk to you, for you to understand yourself, also makes that a little bit lighter, right? Because instead of saying, "Ooh, this thing happened and I felt like I should have said something," or "I felt like I should have done something," "I felt like I should have taken action," you can give all of those emotions some space to breathe a little bit. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is you're just going to carry them and you're going to they're going to grab hold of you and they're not going to come off for a little while. And so that's kind of a big piece for me when you're kind of navigating, but I think it's also very similar to a lot of the other pieces that we've talked about today. Those challenges are going to be yours. They're going to be unique to you in their own ways. They're going to be like others in some own ways. Um, so the thought of building community, we are human beings. We are wired for community. And so I always echo the thought of building community. But it is a balancing act that you also, I would say, approach with some curiosity, some intentionality, and just don't carry it.
All of these things, amazing. Thank you all for just being here in this space. I took a lot of heat. Like, I'm feeling like calmer, like, let me just breathe for a second, right? And so, thank the students for being on here and being in this space of just trying to sustain yourself as you're trying to sustain a chapter, trying to sustain yourself as you're trying to sustain your identity in spaces and places that we don't even maybe even know about. And so mental health and health and wellness as we are approaching Founders Week for Phi Alpha Delta is important. And I'm just so grateful. We are so grateful just to have these panelists on here. And we'll be sending out the recording as well. Like I said, we'll send out the recording, any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. One thing I want you all to do is drop in the chat, but I'm also going to make sure it's attached to our email. We send out the email. How can people get in contact with you all? Whether it's you're taking clients, right? Like if you're taking clients, um, just spill. And I probably won't even have you all drop in the chat. I'm just gonna have you all just say it so it can be on the recording as well. Just go around real quick. How can they contact you all? And I'll send your links out when I send the email. So last thing, how can they contact you? Or are you taking clients?
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say you can visit my website. I am accepting clients. My website is 77 I do a 15-minute consultation call. I do accept insurance. So yeah, if you have any questions, yeah, just feel free to schedule the call.
Yeah, you can find me. Yeah, I have a couple slots. I could accept a few more clients, or if anybody was in any other kind of group organizations that they wanted like a mental health speaker at, I could be down to jump into that too. I love doing panels. You could find me on Psychology Today by looking up Angel Barraza. Check out catalystindy.com. You'll be able to find me as one of the providers on there. Yeah, it's been a really great time.
I'm gonna echo Angel. I do have some foster clients. I am also available for panels, program speaking, and things like that. I work in a group practice called the National Renewal and Resilience Hub, NRARH. So you can find us at NRARH.com. We have 3 different practices across a few different states. So if you are specifically want to get to my page, it'll just be nrarh.com/IN. You'll be able to find me there. You can schedule a consultation with myself or our front office, and we can go from there.
Thank you all. Well, I'm going to let you all go. I'm going to ask our panelists. Well, first and foremost, thank you all for attending this session. And I will be sure to email this out to the recording.